City Council meeting scheduled for Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Beagle,
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Present.
Councilmember Behrman,
Here.
Councilmember Gatchel,
Here.
Councilmember Grunland Fox is excused, Councilmember Sharp,
Present.
Councilmember Smiley,
Here.
quorum present.
Thank you. Changes or additions to the agenda as presented tonight. City Manager?
That's all, sir. Thank you.
Any from the dais? Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. I would like to add a hopefully brief discussion about the GFL contract, please.
Anybody else? All right, very good. Moving on to the approval of minutes. We've got two sets of minutes to approve tonight. The first one's from the special city council meeting of August 23rd, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Comments, questions? Okay, I got a motion and a second to approve the special city council meeting minutes of August 23rd, 2022. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The second set of minutes is the regular city council meeting minutes of August 23, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support. Any questions, comments, additions? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the regular city council meeting minutes of August 23rd, 2022. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. Correspondence, we have one item of correspondence tonight, and that's the Michigan Airline Trail Hawk update. And that moves us to the first call to the public. The rules to the call to the public are as follows. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council. And all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody for the first call to the public?
Good evening. Lincoln Day, 2950 Loon Drive, and I'm here reflecting my position as chairperson of the Woodson Planning Commission, and I wanted to speak about the new business item number 2, and just express my disappointment in the recommendation and I have nothing against Carlisle Workman, and I'm sure that if council decides to go through with the recommendation, they'll do a fine job, and I'll be able to work with them. But we did conduct an interview at the Planning Commission, and it was the unanimous opinion of the Planning Commission that CIB should be retained as our planning consultants. I felt, and I think the other commissioners felt, that CIB was much more enthusiastic about our city, much more interested in the future, and I didn't hear any of that enthusiasm or new ideas from Carlisle Workman. I also like the fact that CIB has everybody at their firm involved with Woodson in some way, which I think is, I know that city administration felt that they were spreading it too thin. For me, I thought it was good that everybody there had familiarity with the city, its issues, and its personnel. Carlisle Workman does have different departments that CIB doesn't have, but CIB has affiliations that they've been able to use and bring in to cover various issues that they don't have in-house. I worry in a way that the CIB was being punished because Carmine Aventini acknowledged that he might be retiring in the future. I admire him for bringing that out up front. I know that we have seen less of Carmine, but the personnel we have seen, in particular Kelly McIntyre, I've been very pleased with. I think, that they are well positioned for the future. They have young people. And we heard nothing from Carlisle Wortman about how it sounded like there's going to be one individual basically who deals with Wixom. And who knows what happens when that individual retires or moves on to something else. I just think that the numbers, and I know my colleague Commissioner Casey will speak more to this, but I don't think the numbers really show a tremendous cost savings with Carlisle Wortman. We are in a period of tremendous change and growth in the city of Wixom, and I really just don't think it's the time to switch horses. So I don't know what you're going to do, but I would have been remiss if I hadn't come here and expressed my very great disappointment in the recommendation made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Cheryl Casey, 1483 Pondview Drive, Wixom. I also wish to speak to new business item number 2. I prepared notes just so I don't ramble on beyond the 5 minutes. The presentations from both CIB and Carlisle Wortman were the same in that both look at a city's master plan as an engaging document that is implementation focused. CIB offers varying levels of experience, works with other firms for specialized expertise, and looks to their own younger partners for input on the future so that they can bring the most innovative ideas to their customers, helping them not only retain but also gain residents and businesses. In their presentation, they spoke with passion about working with our city, of all the positive things that we have going for us, like the bike trail, VCA, the Ford PUD, etc. They've shown that they know their job is to help us get results. It's about growth potential and quality of life. They are acutely aware of the generation gap in terms of the differences in lifestyle that younger people want, how they differ from the current middle-aged population, and the needs of the aging population who want to stay in the area but need to be able to affordably downsize and have access to transportation. They guide us with concerns like these in mind. Carlisle Wortman, throughout their interview, kept restating that we should hire them because, quote, this is what they do. They spoke about how city planning is their, quote, bread and butter. They stated that we should make developers bend to our master plan, which seemed to me to be an old school approach rather than working together to develop properties for the good of all. They stated that they were the largest firm in the state with a full bench of experienced players and that we should hire them, quote, because Wixom's needs are in their wheelhouse. Not once did they indicate anything about our city that excited them to come work with us or introduce any new ideas that they thought they could bring to us. Both Bill and I were on the Planning Commission when we hired LSL because we saw them as being the correct partner to help us move forward with the VCA. We then retained Carmen as he formed his own company, CIB, because we valued and trusted his guidance. CIB has continued to bring new ideas for our growth, innovative problem solving for rewording and restructuring ordinances, and to help us avoid becoming a stagnant city. CIB has already addressed the changes in personnel that they see on the horizon and reassured us that they are poised to continue to move forward in the future when Carmen's no longer in the picture. We know that the financial component also needs to be considered. When I reviewed the numbers presented in the packets that have been prepped for us by each firm, I noted that the primary staff of CIB that handles our business bills out at a comparable rate to the staff being presented by CW. I also noted that when comparing the rate structure between the two firms for things like single-family plat reviews or rezoning applications, CIB was usually $50 to $170 less. They know us and our processes, what it takes to get the job done because they have been doing it. CW can only offer a guesstimate, and my concern is that for the perceived lower price, we'll end up with either less experienced service or less service overall. The Planning Commission, both individually and collectively, told Drew that we were not impressed with a firm that seemed to just want to add us to their head count. Carlisle Wortman's presentation was about why we should hire them rather than what they could do for us. For me, what sets CIB apart from CW is their shared vision to ours and the energy as to where we wish to take our city. They understand the desire that we have to recreate the downtown buildings that we should have to match the city spirit that we've always had. Thank you for your consideration. I will work with whatever firm we end up going with in the future, but I just wanted you to think of these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for the first call to the public? Seeing none, I'll close the first call to the public, move on to city manager's report. We have 2 reports tonight. First one is the fire monthly report from July 2022. Any questions? All right, and the second one is the police monthly report from July 2022. Any questions? You guys are getting off easy tonight, man. Yeah. All right, next up is the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished new business. Do I have a motion?
Support.
Okay, I got a motion and support to approve the consent agenda as presented tonight. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no unfinished business tonight, which moves us to new business number 1, and that's a recommendation to award a 3-year contract for municipal complex janitorial services to Detail Experts of Detroit, Michigan, in the amount of $123,228 for year 1 and a 2% increase annually for the second and third years, and approve the associated budget amendment. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Or
Mr. Sigma?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. What you have before you is a recommendation to approve Detail Experts as the janitorial folks for our city offices and buildings. The services they provide are for the community events that occur over at the community center, as well as 7-day operation at the police station. They also do it twice a week, cleaning of the DPW and the fire department as part of their services. They work on a daily basis as well with the library, and this is a change due to quality of workmanship, and we feel that we are better, that Detail Experts would be able to better serve the community and give our staff and the facilities portion the cleaning that it needs to continue to be a clean facility for all those in the public. And with that, I'd be open for questions.
Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. What are some of the issues that we've been experiencing with the current vendors?
So the current vendors, we're recognizing that it hasn't been vacuumed as often as we would like. We can see the windows that are near the outside have insects that continue to be collecting in different areas. And if you look at the corners, you can see cobwebs that are developing. It's just not getting a thorough cleaning that we would expect. Also in the restroom areas, the cleaning in those particular areas are sometimes getting washed with to cleanliness that really doesn't, we don't recognize that they're being cleaned sometimes, frankly. So we feel that some of that is because of the time that's spent there. And so over the last year, we tried to increase the timing and increase the payment for the cleaning company, and they weren't able to do that to our satisfaction. In July, they increased their rates by 25%, and over the last 2 months, it was kind of a trial basis, thinking that, okay, if we pay them even more for the services, that they would recognize the quality would be part of that, and we haven't really recognized any changes in their services, and we feel that's a change is needed for that part.
So have we walked, I assume, let me know if I'm wrong, that we've walked through all of the areas that we have difficulty with them with?
Yes.
What are the reasons that they haven't adjusted how they're doing business?
So we, at different times, we had supervisors come in. We would write the different discrepancies with each department, and they would talk with their management team about that. We've had 3 or 4 different meetings with the management teams at different times throughout the last 2 years, and we really haven't seen that much change.
Okay.
So we're, yeah.
And then, I mean, has any of the bugs and whatnot, it isn't nice, but has any of their work prevented us from holding an event or showing up to do our work on a daily basis?
Of course, that has not occurred, but we also have had employees do the work that we expected the janitorial services to do. We end up having folks vacuum at different times, and that's not a service. It's a service that they should be providing, not our staff.
Okay. Being that they're like just below 40,000 more than the lowest bidder, it seems like a lot more to pay for a little more cleaning. And to me, it's just a very tough thing to justify paying 40,000 more because they aren't cleaning up to our standards, which hopefully we can address, but it's not like things are completely unsightly and we can't show up to do our work, or we can't hold an event or something like that. I don't know if that's shared with anyone else, but it's just 40,000 more for a little bit more clean is a heck of a number to pay for that. I would almost stay where we are and continue to try to work out the issues with them, or adjust the contract to state that we're going to start counting the amount of hours we clean and we're going to not pay you those. So
we had something in the contract that we would end up charging for that. We've tried countless times over the last 2 years. 2 years ago, I would have agreed with you on this, and you know, we tried to give them the benefit of the doubts on these situations, and we just cannot get the services that we're looking for.
For the benefit of council, if I can make a couple of comments in relation to what Councilmember Gottschall said and what Tim has said so far. The issue here is there are requirements that the company is not meeting, period. It's been brought to their attention multiple times, and if there's any improvement at all, it lasts for a period of days, and then it goes back to the same situation as it was before. So my concern on this is just from the standpoint of 2 things, and that's we're not getting the service that we're paying for, regardless of how much less expensive that service is. And if we continue to let the company continue to not meet the expectations, then that's fair enough, and we would just know that we're not going to get those things met because the attempts to address it have not been successful in any way, shape, or form. They've been multiple and absolutely unsuccessful every time. The other thing that I would say is in relation to public-facing spots, Councilmember Gottschall mentioned, is there anything that prevents us from coming into work, or anything that really would be, something along the lines of embarrassing or anything like that? And that's something that we've talked about internally. The City Hall and other areas like that, those common areas, nobody's going to notice the differential with that. You may notice it in restrooms because there is going to be a difference there, in my estimation. So public restrooms will be improved. But in terms of general work areas at City Hall, I don't see any real, major impactful visual difference. We do have complaints from the community center that they have to have other people come in and bring the facility up to a standard that would be acceptable to the people that are renting the facility. That is something that is happening that does impact forward-facing uses of the building over there at the community center. So that's the 2 things that I would mention. I totally understand where Councilmember Gottschall is coming from. It's something we've been wrestling with in terms of the cost differential, and is the difference in cost that we're going to have to pay worth the difference in better cleaning that we're going to receive. And ultimately, just in the end, for a couple of reasons, the forward-facing facilities like the community center, where it will matter, was a concern. The bathrooms are a concern. And just the fact the company is just not meeting the terms of the contract that they've signed week in, week out, month in, month out, are what causes us to bring this forward. I do recognize it's a definite increase in costs, and it was something we wrestled with for a long time and finally decided that we had to bring it to council for a review and potential action.
Yeah, I guess just in hearing that and paying more for residents to come in and not see a giant difference in the public areas, except for maybe the bathroom. It's just, I understand it's a struggle for us and it consumes time to get them to do it, but I'd be hard pressed to think that it's $40,000 more. I mean, we're almost into the territory for what we would need to pay on this contract of just hiring a few part-time people ourselves and keeping them on staff, because we're now going to be over $100,000 a year for cleaning for not much more clean. So-
Frankly, that's the part of the discussion we've had internally as well, that this would likely be an interim step to evaluating whether we do go with internal staff and have better control over the cleaning quality and the outcomes that we have for that kind of cost. So we're on the same page as that as well. Just this would be an interim move in the meanwhile, and we could decide from there if we wanted to go to an internal staffing solution.
When is our contract done with the current provider?
We're on a month-to-month with our current provider.
I would almost be more in favor of not paying more and evaluating the financials of hiring our own folks rather than immediately jumping into this as a stopgap. I mean, we've been tolerating the uncleanliness for a while, even though it's not like unseemly uncleanliness. I don't know. It seems like we're going about it backwards. So, thank you.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mayor Beagle. Hello, Mr. Stickman. Councilman Gottschall and yourself, kind of fleshed out a lot of the things I was curious about too. It sounds like, I think Mr. Brown touched on part of this, that, so we'd catch several things, undone or not done, and maybe they'd be better for a little bit after you yelled at them, but then it would slip back into, and has this been going on ever since we, contracted with them?
Yes.
And that's 2 years it's been?
Well, the last 2 years of, it's actually been 4 years total.
Oh,
But
it's always
we've
been a problem?
concentrated on it, yes.
Gotcha, okay. And I'm bothered by, they missed a corner, a cobweb here and there, that's one thing, but, bathrooms, residents using the community center noticing enough that you gotta pull somebody to go clean it or do something, that's really unacceptable. That's bad for morale too, I'm sure. Excuse me. And you kind of covered some examples of that stuff. So they're vacuuming. Are they going in and cleaning up the bathroom too?
Yes, they're vacuuming, cleaning up bathrooms, they're doing the floors. There's a portion that at uptime that does windows and interior or the external door windows, and the library is another function with the kids that are in there. They have a certain quality standard that they need for the for health reasons, and that
Sure.
they don't feel that they're getting.
Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, $37,000 or $40-ish thousand more, to get it done right. It does seem like a lot, but it sounds like we're getting what we're getting what we paid for. We're getting some bottom dollar item, and there were 2 other bids that were higher. So yeah, it's a little tough to swallow, but it's that might be what you got to do to get the job done right. One more thing, real quickly, can you just very briefly just cover what buildings or what areas is this going to cover?
This covers
This whole campus?
this campus, community center, the library, the fire department, and
Fire department, okay.
Department of Public Works.
And Public Works, okay.
Yep, and that's all of them.
Okay, well, that's a lot of
This
buildings.
whole building,
That's a lot of area.
that one,
I
yeah.
gotcha, okay. All right, thank you, sir.
And the library has been very dissatisfied and has been, quite frankly, in our ear about it for some time. The library director wanted to make it clear they were not only willing to pay additional costs to see it done, but wanted to pay additional costs to see it done properly.
I know I said I was done, but just a quick follow-up. Is the library especially poorly cleaned, or are they just more sensitive or noticing it more? It's the same problem everywhere, but they're they're feeling it more.
Yeah, I would say there's no quality difference.
Okay. Thank you.
Tim, what's the opt-out on this contract? Is it a 60-day, 90-day, with whoever we go with tonight? If we go with the recommendation?
60 days. After.
60 days?
Yes.
Okay. Because I would vote to give these guys a chance. My big concern is if we try to go out and do this ourselves, is we're going to run into the same problem everybody else does, is we're going to put the application out, we're going to have nobody apply for this.
Right.
And again, we'll have our own employees putting their outfits on and cleaning windows and
Right.
stuff like that, and that's not what we're paying them to do. So I guess mine would be to go with the opinion tonight to switch, and let's keep an eye on it, and if we have to, we'll go to Plan B, but let's keep an eye on it. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you, Mayor. As my daughter and son-in-law own a business that perform these services, they were not one of the bidders, but I know that it's a tough industry. And what that industry has seen over the last 2 to 3 years is a high turnover rate. I was quite frankly shocked that Dual could actually provide services for 6 buildings, and one of them 7 days a week, for that $86,000. That's
Right.
I did the calculations, and knowing what my daughter charges and what's needed to be charged to retain these employees, the other 3 bids are in line with what I've actually a little bit lower than what I would have expected for it. So I think I support this, and we just have to make sure that those quality standards are understood by detailed experts, and hopefully they're not seeing the same turnover. I don't know if they have any magic sauce in retaining employees, but the turnover has been so high that even supervisors in those positions that would supervise a particular account, when that turnover happens, then the training goes down, and then the corners get missed, and garbage cans get missed, and those sorts of things. So I just hope that we can hold them to a higher quality standard, being that they do hospitals and labs. They do them, that those facilities do have much higher quality standards, and I'm hoping that we will have a better outcome. So I can support this. Is there a representative from Detail Experts?
We did not ask for the representative to be here tonight. We did do our research on and the background, well, not the background checks, but the references that we checked were all very good, and we feel that they can do a good job for us.
So you did physically reach out to those?
We did call, yes,
All right.
their contacts.
Anybody else? Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Sigma, so it sounds like, if I'm doing the math, reverse the math correctly, we're paying about $60,000 a year to do all, and they wanted to raise it 25% to go to 75, which we put in the budget, but their bid came in at 86, is that right?
Yes.
And it feels like something's missing here between 86 and 123,000, like their detail's going to do more than do all, but it's the same basic, there's no like technology that detail experts have in the cleaning industry that allows them to charge $37,000 more. Is there some proprietary information or something they have? What are we missing here, and how do we know Detail Experts is going to do any better cleaning than Do All, other than hope, as Deputy Mayor Resnick just said?
Right. So they do have some. They came from the car cleaning industry initially. Excuse me, and they that was their initial, I guess, line into the cleaning situations, and they did develop a steam cleaning system for that. But other than that, the technology is the people that they're offering is the only explanation I have for the added cost. If you go down to RNA, Facilities Management and Master Maintenance, they have criteria, have a different. We've met with all 4 of the companies, and there is a professionalism that the other companies have that we don't necessarily see with Duo. But those are only superficial as at best. The proof is going to be in the floors and in the bathrooms, and whether or not our garbage gets collected. And
It just feels like, we're going to do the same thing with detail experts. We're going to say, you got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to do this. And we're doing that same thing with do-all, but sounds like they're not doing it.
well,
And we're holding $40,000 pretty near and dear to our hearts. We're about to talk about that amount of money on business item number 2 here. And we're going to go the other way on that one, or maybe.
If I can just interject quick, the difference here between the 2 bids, in my opinion, Councilmember Sharp, is that the existing provider doesn't have enough money in their contract to do the work that they say they're going to do from an hourly standpoint. The second bidder, theoretically, and in my opinion, does. That's fundamentally what we're looking at. One charges enough to provide the level of service that's called for in the contract. The other does not, and they do not provide that level of service, in my estimation. So it's not technology. It's just that's the differential in price that's required to provide the level of service that's called for the number of buildings, the number of hours that are required. That's the difference between 2 bids, in my estimation.
So that's your assessment that the do-all is just a non-qualified bid because they didn't bid correctly for...
They're not providing the service. Yeah.
They bid it. We gave them the benefit of the doubt for several years, and after different counseling sessions and different discussions with management, we still don't see the results that we need. So that's why we want to move forward.
Okay, I like Mayor's suggestion about some type of 6-month review or something like that.
Just like we're going to...
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other? Councilmember Behrman?
I'm in support of it, but following the idea of potentially hiring our own employees, how many hours is this?
So, yeah, each part is different. I think there's 3 or 4 hours here and 3 or 4 more every day over in police. And then community center is intermittent because of parties and different things. So they have a whole schedule according to their system. And then the library is, another 4 hours a day.
So is it 1 employee or 2 employees that are servicing us? Is it the same employees?
There's different employees for different areas that they've been using. I think the ones that do the community center and the library also do the fire or the police department. And then there's another group that does DPW and the fire department.
So on a hypothetical idea, if we went down the path of eventually hiring people, how many people would we need to hire? Full-time people?
It would depend on the scheduling, but probably 3 part-time people.
Oh, thank you for that.
We would like to probably hire part-time versus the full-time
I
piece
understand
because
that,
of the scheduling of it. I think it'd be easier for everybody, and there's less fringe benefits.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, I have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to award a 3-year contract for the municipal complex janitorial services to Detail Experts of Detroit, Michigan in the amount of $123,228 for year 1 and a 2% increase annually for the 2nd and 3rd years, and approve the associated budget amendment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
Mayor Beagle?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman?
Yes.
Councilmember Gatchel?
No.
Councilmember Sharp?
Aye.
5 yes, 1 no.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on to new business number 2 is a recommendation to award a 5-year agreement to Carlisle Workman Associates Incorporated of Ann Arbor, Michigan to provide planning and zoning services for the city of Wixom, and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support?
Thank you. Assistant City Manager Drew Benson.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. As you all know, City Council has directed city management to evaluate all of our contractual services over the course of time as those contracts come to expiration, and put them out to bid to evaluate the level of service and competitiveness of the costs, and evaluating what we're getting for our money and looking at our options. So in line with that, city management put out a routine request for proposals for planning and zoning services. We received 2 bids, one from CIB, Planning, our incumbent firm, and Carlisle Wortman Associates of Ann Arbor, Michigan. Moving forward through that, we held individual interviews with city administration and a review team, including the building official and the former public safety director. We also coordinated interviews with the Planning Commission to gather their input. These interviews looked at different things. We talked about different components of what being a planning and zoning service provider for the city entails. As a reminder, just as discussed in the memo, there are retainer fees for the routine activities of performing office hours. We currently have 2 half-days per week, and also answering questions from applicants and just general kind of service related planning commission packets, zoning board of appeals, and etc. There are individual review fees related to the reviews they do for planning commission and zoning board of appeals, and there are hourly charges for specific services that we request. In going through this, we looked at all of those aspects between both firms. These are very different firms. Our incumbents, CIB Planning, they're smaller. They've been with the city for a long time. I believe they have 6 full-time employees, and in general have done a good job for the city of Wixom. They have their pros, they have their cons. In the same way, we evaluated Carlisle Wortman Associates bid, looked at the pros that they have. They are a larger firm. They have a wider capacity of services, but at the same time, they do not have the experience with the city of Wixom. And we took Planning Commission's input seriously when they talked about their perceptions of how they interview. We also looked at those, specifically the retainer costs to compare. Carlisle Wortman did come in as having a lower base amount for that retainer. In all honesty, what we pay for planning and zoning services will be entirely dependent on 3 factors I mentioned before. How many projects come in that are reviewed, which those costs are borne by applicants, or we are a pass-through. And really those hourly services that we look for on specific projects, whether that be a zoning ordinance amendment, whether that be a master plan amendment, whether that be, proactively planning for some sort of development project on city-owned property, or anything along those lines that we initiate. Depending on what we ask for, these costs could end up being similar, but it was our opinion that having a lower base value that's more in line with what we have historically paid for a retainer fee was an attractive aspect of Carlisle Wortman's proposal. That way, in situations when we are slower or there isn't as much going on, that the costs that we pay for just the retained aspects reflect that. We also looked at, from an ongoing perspective, the city of Wixom has grown 27% from 2010 to 2020. That growth will likely continue, and looking at the volume of projects, the complexity of the projects that we'll have coming through, that we've had coming through, and the services that we've requested will only become more complicated. And so having a firm that had, on staff things like landscape architects and GIS specialists to be able to really augment our own third-party services that we picked up, environmental wetland delineation specialties, all of those kind of things. When we looked at all of those things, it was a difficult decision, a difficult recommendation to say there are pros and cons to both firms. In our professional opinion, looking at the trajectory of the city of Wixom and our workload, it was our opinion that Carlisle Wortman Associates is the best option for the city of Wixom to move forward, recognizing that CIB Planning has done an excellent job for the city over the years. They've had things that they've done well, and they've had things that they necessarily may not have, as would be the case in any situation. This is not a recommendation that we made lightly or without considering, the historical context of that. But we're looking, it was our opinion to look at a 5-year, what will the city need in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and as we move forward, as opposed to just looking at where we have been. So with all that in mind, our recommendation is to proceed to request council approve a contract with Carlisle Wortman and Associates, and we do have representatives, Mr. Doug Lewan and Ben Carlisle. Doug will be serving, if this contract is approved, as our primary liaison. They also would have an additional staff member, potentially Laura Krebs, who interviewed with our administrative team. She was not able to come to Planning Commission, nor is she available tonight, or another staff member that we will collaboratively work on. We've had a lot of conversations about a transition like this and really what the right fit will be for the city. And it honestly was attractive to be able to really fit a skill set from the roster of potential options. So I would invite them up to answer any questions that you all may have, and we would answer any questions that you may have directly as well.
I have one question before we move on. How do we proceed with this after the letter we received last night stating that CIB has withdrawn their proposal?
That is a good question. That is an unfortunate situation that CIB has elected to withdraw their bid. It would be, in my opinion, that based on our recommendation, they are no longer interested in continuing services with us. That would be a conversation that we would have to have with them. We honestly haven't had the chance to talk to them about that since that letter came out last night.
All right. Well, I would like to have the representatives from Carlisle Wortman come on up and introduce themselves.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. My name is Doug Lewan, and I am the Vice President of Carlisle Wortman Associates. I've been a planner with Carlisle Wortman since 1993, and then was in the field for a few years before that. Ben Carlisle, one of the principals in the firm. The team that will be working with us here at the City of Wixom, if we are selected, which we're pretty excited for that possibility, would be myself doing the kind of day-to-day work as well as attending Planning Commission meetings. Laura Krebs, as was mentioned, will be my backup. Laura has 20 or so years experience as well. Laura couldn't be here this evening. And then Ben will be working with us for special projects, that Ben has great experience in. But beyond that, so the main team is us three. So the people you will see, primarily you'll see me, whether you like that or not, it would be me. But primarily be me, it'd also be Laura on occasion, and Ben for special projects. Again, aside from that, we have, I think, 14 planners on our staff with various specialties and their own goals themselves. And so, for example, Laura on our particular team is a DDA. She has DDA tip specialty. We have environmental folks, 2 landscape architects. So the point is while you will see us 3, we have a pretty deep bench of specialty within our firm. So if there's an issue that comes up, it's very likely that someone in our firm has addressed it or seen it before. And that's kind of how we work. We, at our office in Ann Arbor, we're a very collaborative group. And even if it's not one of my clients, we always talk to each other. We are very excited, a little bit about the company. For Chairperson Day and Commissioner Tacey, if it didn't come across that we were excited about this, I apologize for that, but we have a lot of excitement about this community. There are characteristics of this community that made us take notice when we received the request for proposal. Those characteristics are obviously your substantial industrial district, the economic development that goes with that. Your growing downtown corridor. We're aware of the issues with the village commercial area. range of housing opportunities for folks. And probably one of the most important things that you'll find out about Carlisle Wortman Associates is that we are not a firm that chases projects. We look for long-term relationships with clients. And we see the City of Wixom as an opportunity for a long-term relationship. We don't bid, in fact, this is one of the first requests for proposals for a client that we've taken on in a while, because it's the kind of community that we want to work for. And we'd be very excited and honored to be chosen if you do choose us as your next planning consultant. With that, I don't know, Ben, if you want to add anything to that.
No, I just do want to stress, again, appreciate the opportunity. My name is Ben Carlisle Wortman. I have less experience than Doug, but I have about 20 years experience on my own. One of the issues, there are questions that came up from the Planning Commission is, what if Doug leaves, what if we leave, etc. Carlisle Wortman's had a 40-year commitment to Southeast Michigan. This firm started actually by my father in the 80s. It's now transitioning to a younger generation within the company. But we service a number of clients in Southeast Michigan, and we only do public work. We do not work with private developers. We do not chase projects. This is, again, I use the term bread and butter or wheelhouse because this is really what we do. We service local communities. So we are not going anywhere. Hopefully we'll make enough money to retire at one point in my career, but I'm not there yet. So I have another many years in this business. My name is on the company letterhead. My name is part of the firm. And so we have a commitment to Southeast Michigan and a commitment to Wixom. So I really wanted that to come across that we're in this for the long haul. We believe in long-term commitments. We've had some communities for 40 years that we have maintained as a long-term client. I think that shows the strength and stability and success of our company. Thanks, sir.
All right, with that, I'll open up for questions for either administration or for representatives from Carlisle Wortman. Questions? Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. Being that we recently changed vendors for trash and whatnot, and the nightmare that's become, what is the plan for ensuring if this is passed that there are not going to be any transfer issues?
That is an excellent question and something we certainly considered as part of this process. Without a doubt, there will be, it's harder to transition than to not. We have worked collaboratively to talk through what items are going to have to be transferred. We are fortunate in the way that our planning services really flow through the processes that, from a CenterPoint standpoint, city staff is the linchpin, and it's really, sending work to Carlisle Wortman to review and coordinating with each individual party. So we have comprehensive lists of what projects are ongoing, what things have been in the pipeline, what things may be upcoming, and it will be about transferring those over. The other thing is that, as CIB Planning mentioned in their letter, they, while disappointed with our recommendation, would still be willing to work with us through the end of the month to ensure that handoff goes as smoothly as possible. And so we have already proactively really mapped out what do we have going on, what does the landscape look like, what are the projects that are in the pipeline, what are the things that the city, sort of proactively would like to look at in the coming future. So some of those things have been on hold or have really not moved forward pending this discussion. But we feel confident and through conversations with Carlisle Wortman prior to this, feel confident that we will be able to have a smooth transition. There will be introductions that need to be made. Folks are familiar with our current planning firm, and we'll have to make those introductions and have people be comfortable calling Doug as opposed to calling Herman. But we feel confident that there will not be any significant transition issues for applicants.
We've also talked about an introductory meeting with Planning Commission and Carlisle Wortman and their representatives to allow and afford the opportunity to discuss the parameters of what life is like in doing business with the city of Wixom and key considerations and those kind of things to facilitate good relationship building right off the jump, if you will, with Carlisle Wortman and the Planning Commission as well as Zoning Board of Appeals members. So that's another item that we would consider to be key as part of our transition planning, is to make that meeting happen early on. And have the opportunity for those kind of relationship buildings and expectation setting to get done up front very quickly, so there'd be very little drag at all in the transition process.
How will some of the longer-term projects we have going on, like the RRC, I mean, are you guys experts in redevelopment-ready communities?
Yeah, we've done it for a number of communities. Yes, we've done it for a number of communities, RRC program. In addition, one of our principals of our company actually was one of the founding members that actually helped assist and develop the program itself. So we've got a lot of in-house expertise on that matter.
Okay. I mean, we've been at that for years, and it seems like we still have years to go. How has that impacted?
So there are specific projects that, through a technical assistance grant through the MEDC, that we will still be continuing to work with CIB planning on, specifically the marketing and branding. The DDA plan project that was part of that has come to a conclusion insofar that it was the collective decision that now is not the best time to proceed with that. But we do have the draft document in place. The last item is the VCA ordinance, which we had that joint meeting on, and have taken that back to the Planning Commission, and they have done some work on that. The honest truth is that has kind of stalled. I'm not quite certain if that's a reflection of awaiting this decision or where that particular project has ended up, but that is going to be a mantle that will be picked up, and we've had sort of an introductory conversation about what that process has looked like. So those are the three key things related to RRC. But the rest of the projects, the things that we're not contractually bound to, but still need to do and need to complete, I will be honest, to have the added capacity and really experience and set of resources to draw upon to help complete those things, like a public participation plan, continuing education pieces for our boards and commission, feedback systems for customers to be able to provide that. Those are things that are required, and that's not to say that CIB may not have experience with those, but really the added capacity to be able to move those across the goal line more quickly is a factor in where our recommendation came from. And really, I will add, we did do reference checks for both firms. We called, obviously we're familiar with CIB planning, but we called other communities that have CIB planning and talked to them about what their experiences have been like, the pros and cons. We found that their experiences have been very similar. What we get here from CIB is similar to what others experience. And for the communities we call Fort Carlisle, or places like Scioto Township, that is a growing community very similar to us. The city of Saline, similar in that geographic size, they're smaller than us, but also a quickly growing community. All of these communities going through the same process as we are. Those recommendations came back sterling and really were, I think, quite moving for us. And talking about completing those like RRC projects and complicated planning issues, and how do you develop your downtown and things like that. So that was part of it as well.
How will the reduced monthly office hours impact our timelines that we've come to expect, Planning Commission, developers, everything like that?
The reduced office hours will not necessarily, we don't see that being an issue. And really, in your agenda packet, there's kind of some math about the difference in office hours. And that really was a way for us to try to break down how, because the proposals come in differently. Our CIB submitted their proposal, and everything is on a flat hourly rate. So they say, X person will be 24 hours there a month, and you just break it out by week into office hours. Carlisle Wortman's bid is based on a set amount for each half day. So we made some rough estimations of what those half days will look like. Will some days be 4 hours and some days might be 6? I mean, things like that are entirely possible, and I would believe fall under that definition of a half day. So also a lot of those planning commission items and things like that happen in out of the office anyways. The office hours are primarily related to basic things like reviewing zoning permits or reviewing sign permits or taking phone calls or having pre-application meetings or things like that. The actual kind of nitty-gritty work happens, back at their headquarters or, by a staff member who's, not doing the office hours necessarily. It's coordinated back and forth. Carlisle Warman may be able to speak to that as well.
Yeah, so, appreciate it. So we have a set, obviously set office hours rate. We also have an unlimited retainer amount in terms of we don't have a set time in terms of how much a month applies to that retainer. So like I tell my children, just because I'm not in the room doesn't mean I'm not watching them. Just because we're not here in the office doesn't mean we're not working for Wixom. There are members of our staff that will be at our own office, in Ann Arbor, working on projects for Wixom as part of the retainer, as well as answering any phone calls, questionnaires from the staff, developers, applicants, calls to their office, emails, etc. So we do have the set office hours, but we also have hours dedicated as part of our retainer, unlimited per month, to deal with issues off-site as well. So just because we're not here doesn't mean we're not accessible and available for work for Wixom.
Okay. Now, when it comes back around to CIB, how have we sought to address any of the issues we've been experiencing with them in the past?
We have had conversations about, the status of projects and the timelines and things like that. And, to be quite frank, I believe it comes across as a capacity issue of just, how much, X amount of people can move across at one time.
With the other workflow that's involved, I think is just challenging from the standpoint of additional projects and the day-to-day workflow and the staff size of the organization, I think has been part of the issue. So while it's been addressed, there hasn't been organizational capacity to really do much more than they were doing.
Like how frequently and how recently were things brought up with CIB?
I will say this, as a part of this whole review process and looking at these bids, pros and cons, yes, capacity was a primary concern, and we didn't look at it, and it hasn't been a conversation with CIB to say you're not doing enough. It's been a reflection as we went through this and thought about, well, how much have we gotten? And it's not an indictment upon CIB. That's not the point. It's a criticism of them. It's a looking at, an alternative option as we do in an RFP process and saying there is clearly the capacity to do more, to be able to move more across more quickly. And quite frankly, our confidence with, the stability and the long-term, fact of will that be the case, regardless of circumstances. So it's more of a pro of looking at at this firm as opposed to downgrading them and saying, oh, they're, if that makes sense.
From Carlisle Workman's perspective, I guess just some thoughts when it comes to your development kind of ideas as it relates to green space and class and more modern buildings versus letting people build things that look ugly and full of prefab concrete. What are your...
So, can you state the question?
Generally, what do you look for when a development is being proposed to you with respect to layout considerations for green space and like a modern looking building or LEED features or glass even? We have some developers that come and they try to pack things in, or they try to use the cheapest quality stuff so they can turn the highest profit. So, what are your thoughts on design aesthetics, I guess?
Well, we first and foremost, we look at this as a partnership with the Planning Commission, with the city. Our reviews will do a couple things. Our reviews, as we get to know the city better, our reviews and our direction will reflect city's goals and where you want to go with projects, specific projects, and those types of architectural, open space, those types of issues. So, first, we look at it as a collaboration between us and the city. Second, and that's great, sometimes developers will review, or developers will cooperate when we ask them to do things. That might not be exactly in your ordinances. I had a wise planner, Ben's dad, once told me that there's a big difference between a planner and a plan reviewer. And so a planner is trying to make the plan better. A plan reviewer is simply looking at the checklist and going through the checklist. But we try to make the plans better. So for those items, we will try to make suggestions, make the plan better, more appropriate for the city. Now, if those suggestions don't work, then step 2 is to adjust your ordinances to make that work. And so we do try to work with developers, property owners, of course collaborate with the planning commission, be planners, not just plan reviewers. But ultimately, if there's a certain direction the city wants to go, those ideas and thoughts and direction should be contained in some kind of ordinance document.
I guess just the last question I have here before I comment is, I noted in the write-up here, it says McKenna and Associates provided a letter stating that they weren't going to be submitting a bid. Was there any reasoning given in their letter as why they weren't interested?
No, it was a pretty short letter. I was actually sort of surprised that we got it, but yeah, to the effect of they had reviewed it. We'd actually had a phone conversation as well prior to them sending that letter, and honestly, a lot of times communities put out these RFPs and firms look at them and ask, is this real? And firms often choose not to submit because they don't think that this is a legitimate conversation. They may look at a community like us and say, these folks have been with the same people for 20 years, there's no way they're changing. So they don't want to waste their time in submitting it, To that effect, it was important to us to tell not only Carlisle Worm Associates, but also CIB that per your direction, these are legitimate processes. So it was simple, and we've elected not to bid, and we wish you the best of luck, and that's about it.
Did they provide any recommendation as to what the city should do within their letter?
I do believe that I would have to pull that back up, but I believe they said in their experience, CIB is a fine firm and would recommend us to proceed with them.
I just think a question session is over for me at this point, but just a comment about, I think, how this was handled. We have members of the Planning Commission here. They were asked for their opinion, and the recommendation is against that. I know since I've been elected, I've been told many a time that when we get something from one of our boards or commissions, we typically do what they want. And so that seems to be the opposite here. I just don't know where that comes from. I also don't know why you would necessarily ask for their input if you were going to just go along with a predetermined outcome from the looks of it. So I think just in how this was handled, maybe not the best. I feel because of that, our hands are sort of tied. I know we're month to month with CIB right now, but they've withdrawn their proposal. So if this isn't passed, does that leave us month to month with CIB? Does their letter mean that they're disinterested altogether working with this administration? I don't know. It feels like maybe some bridges were burned that didn't need to be, just in how this was done, and I feel like it's kind of taken away any ability as a voting member of council on how this would be addressed. Like if this didn't pass, would CIB continue to work with us month to month? I don't know. It doesn't necessarily seem like it. So I feel like this is being given to us to vote on, but every other avenue has been blockaded, so we don't have any other choice. And I don't appreciate being put in that position. This isn't a comment on your business at all, but it's just on how things get done around here, not to my satisfaction on this one. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thank you. Just maybe adding to that, I think it was our request that the administration go out and bid this, just as we did others. So I think the process of bidding it out was a request, and I think it had been kind of building for a long time, even back to, I don't know, 8 years ago. Some of the things that I think we as a council had some frustrations with the current planner on, we addressed RRC. I think we talked about that enough. You do have experience there, and I can recall at the Oakland County workshop that I attended with the current planner 6 years ago, I said, how far do you think we are? About 60%. And if I asked Drew, and we haven't had any movement forward until Drew came on board, and I think you said we're still about 60%.
You'll see in my next month's report, it'll be up to 69%.
Yes, good.
Chipping away.
So I think that is one thing that, this council, we had talked about redevelopment-ready communities. We had all gone to the workshops, and we had made little progress on it until Mr. Benson joined us. So I hope we can continue that. There's been a number of instances where preliminary site reviews were held, with council, and our recommendations to the developer and the planner were ignored, and only to find out later that they weren't implemented, even though they were part of the criteria for going forward for the final site approval. And I think, some of our frustration, if you go back through previous meeting minutes, you'll see that with some of our bigger developments here. I think that we need to make sure that we don't just come up with an excuse and say, well, the developer didn't have to do that because the traffic study didn't warrant it. There's a lot more to traffic than a traffic count, right? And I think that was one of the points we tried to make in two instances. One was Roma Court, the other is Wixom Logistics Center. So I think if we can, take a look at past, we had a wonderful work relationship. I've been working with Carmen and his team since 2001 when we first hired him, when I was on Parks and Rec Commission. So it's been a wonderful experience with him. But as Carmen wasn't doing as much of the work anymore himself, I think that's where we started seeing a lot of these lapses and things. So I'm hoping that the relationship will be better. As you can see by the term of some of your contracts, 1989, 2001, and we were with CIB, or I should say Carmen, before he was prior LSL, since 2001. So the relationship is a long-term one, and we value relationships as well with almost every service. So we're looking forward to that. I think there is an added benefit for you having things like grant writers and LA on staff. LAs are very important, I think, in any type of municipal planning and any master plan implementation. So I hope that brings us some benefit as well. And while I agree with Mr. Gotch on the fact we have no other option today, really, with the recent news and the letter last night from CIB, I'm in support of this, and let's see how it goes forward.
Councilmember Behrman?
Yeah, thank you. I guess, I was, sat in the goal setting meetings where we basically said we wanted to see all of our contracts go out as well. And really, the catalyst that even got me involved to run for council was a project that went through the planning commission and through our prior planner, and they kept pushing, the developer kept pushing for higher density residential development in a lower density zone. And what kept coming to light is that the developer was sort of being pushed by potentially some city staff and possibly our planning consultant all I would have to say is, it looks like, from reading your packet, you guys are qualified. The relationships that you've had, I hope we can build a kind of relationship with you. But I also hope that moving forward, you're going to really take some time and look at what our residents want. Because our residents came out very loudly to object to a high-density residential development several times, yet they kept coming forward. Another thing that has really sort of bothered me over the years was this newer process of conceptual review meetings, where nothing was being decided. It was just they were bringing a potential project to the Planning Commission to let everybody talk about it. Is that something that you guys have utilized in the past?
Some communities choose to do that, some communities don't. Some communities do it because they find it very beneficial for the developer. It's more beneficial for the developer because they can get initial feedback from Planning Commission or whoever the body is without having to put a significant amount of time and investment into the project, plans, etc. One of the issues I have with that philosophy is oftentimes it gets in front of the Planning Commission without getting a good public review by the public for their input too. And so you're kind of getting a soft blessing one way or another from the Planning Commission without having the real public input. So it's a community decision whether or not they want to have concept plan reviews or not.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. My issue there is obviously just reading through the minutes, because I don't attend the Planning Commission meetings, it seems like these projects would come forward and the planning commissioners would talk about, that looks decent or whatnot. And then when the community started coming out and the nuts and bolts started coming out, it ultimately was something that got denied. And my concern as an attorney by day is eventually this is going to turn into a lawsuit. Well, your planning commissioner said this looked like a great project, and then they denied it. So I don't like that process, and I hope that's not a process that you guys continue to utilize moving forward. At least that's my view on it. But beyond that, the cost savings alone and the two proposals, it really just makes sense at this point in time that now's the time that we make a change. And I know our change from our trash hauling contract has not been smooth, that we can talk about later. But a couple of years ago we did change our waste water plant operations contract, and that has been nothing but a smooth transition. So hopefully you guys follow that.
Can I speak to that real quickly? The issue of transition. You've had obviously a very long-term relation with CIB and before that, the previous firm, and we fully respect that because we have long-term relationships with many of our clients, most of our clients. I hope, if I've worked for a community for 20 years, I have planning commissioners coming out supporting me if they were looking to make a change. So I applaud the passion that the planning commissioners have shown for this. So this is very unusual for you in terms of a transition if you've been with someone for 20 years. This is not necessarily an unusual step for us. If you're in the consulting business and this is your practice, you enter situations like this where you have to transition. So we're used to doing this. There will be a learning curve. I'm not going to tell you there's not going to be a learning curve. You're going to have to get to know us and our style. We're going to have to get to know you and your style. But the transition is really, I think, is not, in our opinion, is not an area where we're very concerned about that. Our world in the profession is a small world. We all work pretty closely together. We work with Carmine closely together. And there's a graceful way to enter a community and a graceful way to exit a community. And I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to work with Carmine in terms of that graceful transition and getting what we need to assist us in our transition. So I just want to really address that issue about the transition. I think it will be, I hope it will be smoother than you may anticipate or you're concerned about, because we've done this in a lot of other communities in similar situations over long-term contracts, etc. So I'm sorry, it wasn't a question, but I just want to make sure I addressed that. Thanks.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Councilmember Scher?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Carlisle kind of stole a bit of my thunder. I wanted to applaud and thank the Planning Commission as well for the work they do under Chairman Day. A lot of really smart, inquisitive, independent people on there, and they unanimously said, did I mention brilliant? Because I was one of them before I was on council.
Let's really
I
assume
assume they
you've been
still
going.
are. But thank you for bringing that up. But as I mentioned to Commissioner Tacey this afternoon, there's kind of three stakeholders in here. There's administration, planning commission, and council. And we all don't see what each other goes through. And although I respect the position of planning commission that had the unanimous support of CIB, I felt there was some staleness happening. I'm not here to bash CIB. Some of the other council members said much more softly what I've been thinking as well. But I think it's time for change, and appreciate administration doing what council asks. Go out and let's find, are we getting the best value for the citizens of Wixom? And we think Carlisle Workman at this point is, did I say that right? Work.
It's okay.
Yeah, so I'm not so brilliant. is right. So I support the change, and it's not about the dollars either. It's about some of the things that we've already talked about tonight. So that's all I have. But thank you very much.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mayor Beagle. Just a few comments. I really don't have any questions. Our administration, has laid out the situation very well and where we're at, and I know their due diligence on the research and the exploring this change. I trust their information and judgment. Thank you for everything that you guys have done to make this process happen. Anyway, that's a little bit at odds with the fact that we have a tremendous planning commission, especially since Councilman Sharp left. So their recommendation the other way is somewhat at odds with two bodies that I have tremendous respect for and count on to give us the information that we need to make these kind of decisions. That said, it is what it is, and then the biggest concern that I heard was the transition period, and some fears of, maybe fears might be a strong word, but just the concern that that's where we got to be the most careful and diligent. So I love that you said that you got some experience with this. It doesn't spook you that that there's going to be a transition, because you've been through it before. You hopefully will know what to look for and what to anticipate and what to put a little extra attention to prevent this or that from happening. So that's so that's a great thing. And then finally, just CIB Carmine was we had a tremendous relationship with him, and I liked him personally very much, and I totally understand it was a tough decision, despite the fact that really on paper it looks like a real good one. It doesn't make it easy. So I'm supportive of this because of that, because we got to set our personal relationships aside. This is about what's best for Wixom, and I think you made the case that this is what's best for Wixom. With that, you got my my support with this, and thank you.
All right, and just to echo some other comments up here tonight, I'm not going to bash anybody. We've had a good working relationship with Carmine for 20 plus years. But council asked administration to review all our contracts and make sure we're getting the bang for the buck and make sure that everything's there. And with that, and with some of the issues, I'm not going to bash anybody, but there were issues with the CIB. And then with my research and talking to people, I've got nothing but great compliments about Carlisle Workman, and they're easy to work with, and we're going to be in good hands with them. So I can support this even without anything that happened in the last 24 hours or anything like that. I was going to support this. So with that, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to award a 5-year agreement to Carlisle Workman Associates Incorporated of Ann Arbor to provide planning and zoning services for the city of Wixom, and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Mayor Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gatchel, Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Yes.
5 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to new business number 3 is a discussion about the GFL contract. Councilmember Gatchel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I wanted to bring this up after having discussions with a number of residents, and by discussions, I mean to say complaints, as well as actual discussions with a few other members of council. I know we've talked about issues, and each of us has maybe contacted the city manager about issues that they've been brought to our attention. But this more so comes up after having a discussion with a resident recently and them asking what the difference in cost would have been per household. And they kind of said, like, we're going through all of this for that amount of money per year. And so to them, they would be willing to pay more to have a good quality service than continue dealing with the headache we've been getting with GFL, which has included slow and extremely delayed service day after in some cases, brought to my attention by Councilman Behrman, throwing recycling into the same trucks as trash last week, blocking roads, main roads, Potter particularly, so traffic backs up, and we're talking for 5 minutes before they can move the truck. Trash left on roads and in yards, waste bins not being put back in people's driveways or yards, being left in the street. Overall, when they came in, they pitched us, hey, we've had all these people on staff, they know what they're doing. It genuinely seems they went out and found the cheapest paid, most incompetent people they could, said, here's a truck to drive, throw stuff in it, please. And then someone that is slightly above them on the chain said, yeah, that stuff in the recycling bin, just throw that in the same truck as the trash. So ultimately, I don't know where we are in trying to address things with them, but I would appreciate, I guess, if somebody else wants to jump on, but maybe a letter needs to go that they're on notice, and we will start reviewing their contract very quickly, because residents are not pleased remotely with the service we've been getting, and especially, I think if they're ever caught putting recycling into trash trucks again, that's almost, to my mind, an immediate, we're done with you, and we're moving on to either Old Republic or back to Waste Management. The $15, $16 savings per year per household, I think if we were to go take a poll at this point, people would be willing to pay that and get back better service with competent employees. So I don't know if anybody else has any comments, but that's been my feedback so far, and I think we need to put it in no uncertain terms to GFL that we're done.
I'll chime in. Are we pleased with the progress of GFL right now? No, we're not. We had a homeowners meeting on Sunday. A couple of residents said they were displeasure. But what we have to remember is that this is a new company. We've got growing pains. Maybe we do bring Sam back in with a meeting saying, look, we've got this, and this. We're this far along in the contract, we shouldn't be seeing this. We need immediate improvement. And then, last night I was at a homeowners meeting, and they were pleased with the progress that GFL made. They noticed that the recycling guy, when he would dump the recycles in, if something didn't go in the bin, he got out of the truck, picked it up, put it in. So I think residents are seeing some change. It's not happening as fast as we want it to, and maybe we do need to have a little meeting with GFL, but I think we're way too young in that contract to be sitting here right now saying that, we need to get rid of them and find somebody else. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
I must live in the high rent district because we have the opposite experience. I think for the first time in many, many, many years, On rainy days, our lids are actually closed, and the bins, both recycling and the trash, are flipped closed and put orderly on the desk, on the driveway. So I think,
They know where you live.
yeah, maybe, that's what I was wondering. Maybe it's the high rent district. But, yeah, we had one neighbor ask, why did we change? And we just said, there was a savings, and explained the savings. They said, oh, okay, yeah, we're real pleased with them so far. The only complaint, I think, in our neck of the woods is the timing. We used to be first on the pass over there near the DPW yard. Now we're somewhere towards the end. So I think the timing's the only complaint that people have, but quality of service has been fine.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yeah, I mean, my experience with it is relatively anecdotal. I have talked to a few residents about it. I haven't really heard any strong complaints. I've noticed that, on my block, we get it picked up later in the day. But what I'm hoping is, and I think this would be for you too, Mr. Sigma, we track complaints, and you don't have to have any numbers in front of you. You didn't know about this, but do you happen to know generally if the number of complaints has gone up, or if it's gone up a lot since waste management? Because some of this sounds like the same. I heard some of the same stuff with waste management. It's just part of what comes with any business, and we do have the unfair element of some transition, and they're different. I mean, like we're saying, we're on a slightly different or later schedule than what we were. Anyway, Tim, do you have any insight into complaints of pre-GFL versus post-GFL?
So we're really, we're tracking those. We track them by email. We continue each Wednesday with a list going back to the management of the crews that are out on Wednesdays. And right now what we used to average 5 or 6 different residential issues, we're seeing on an average of 13 or 14 right now yet. And a lot of that is
almost triple.
It's maybe double is more of the number that we're seeing right now. And early on it was much more, obviously, but now it's coming down. We do see that there are other reasons for it, as they had difficulty ramping up with the number of employees initially, and the trucks that we've had, and purchasing those trucks for new development has been an issue. You've noticed some rental dump trucks.
I noticed
or
that.
garbage trucks. I didn't know that you could rent a garbage truck, but there is a company out there that does that, and they have in their southeast fleet, I think they added 12. So there is some growing pains there as well, but we're seeing responses to every item that we call on. If it's missed on Wednesdays, they do come back on Thursdays, and we're trying to get that timing down so that they're completed by 5 o'clock at night rather than 7 or 8. But they are out there. They are responsive for the most part, and they're trying to do their services for us.
If you could just keep that tracking on your radar,
right?
I feel you'll come up again maybe in a couple of meetings.
We could track that back a little bit and to see what actual numbers. I mean, this.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see them get a little more time to smooth out the bumps. So I'm not saying it has to be for the next meeting, but maybe in a couple of meetings, give us an update on if the complaints have continued to come down or go up, then we'll want to know.
Yep. No, we can definitely do that, and we are in contact with them and can talk to them about this. The council reports tonight as well. So.
Thanks.
Councilmember Behrman.
Thank you. Actually, that was on my list, the fact that a lot of their garbage trucks say big truck rental on the side of them. Very unique situation. So The first week we started with them, I thought it was extremely unique that they picked up my trash a little after 6 o'clock at night, especially because I used to have to get up early on trash day to put trash out, and now I can literally come home from work and it hasn't been picked up yet. But so be it. I thought maybe it was just them, learning the route or whatnot. I am curious, do they even start in our community until the afternoon? Because it doesn't appear like they're even here in the morning.
So we have, 3 weeks ago, we sent out our guys actually to check up on them and in different areas, and yeah, we did. They were out at 8 o'clock. We saw them out, throughout the neighborhoods. We kind of tracked them throughout the day, and they started at 7 and looking through. But
Which is disappointing as own set that you have to do that.
Correct. Yep.
But my trash has been considerably getting later to, usually it doesn't get picked up to 7 p.m. or after, which is fine if it's getting picked up, but I am concerned when it starts to get darker how that's going to affect it. But I'm generally fine. My cans were always put back. It wasn't until, 3 weeks ago when my subdivision was paved where I was severely agitated with GFL. Several hours after our street was paved, 3 trash trucks came through our sub, and that brand new asphalt is now rutted throughout the entire subdivision. The cul-de-sac is completely ruined, is wavy. And I brought that to administration's attention, and it's been 3 weeks tomorrow and nothing has been done. Nothing from GFL has been done, nothing from Allied, our contractor we hired, nothing from our engineering firm that should never have let that happen as far as I'm concerned. They all know our trash day is on Wednesday. Why they allowed them to put the final coat of asphalt down on Wednesday is beyond me. Why the drivers of the garbage trucks didn't realize they were ruining the street after they hit the first house and continued to wave back and forth throughout our entire sub is beyond me. It just, zero common sense there. And I've been waiting for a response on what's going to be done to fix our street, and I've received nothing back from you, Tim, or from even Steve at this point, because you guys don't have the answers. And frankly, I do think that needs to be resolved. This last week, though, is really what got me. Out walking my kids, and I see the garbage truck coming through slightly after 7 o'clock, not really paying attention, and then all of a sudden I noticed they're just throwing everything in the exact same truck. The recycle bin, all the trash, whatever's at the curb is going in the same truck. So I walked over and I asked them, why are they doing that? And their response was, our supervisor told us to do this to get this done. So I completely agree with the idea that a letter needs to be sent. That if they ever do that again, there is zero reason why we should keep them as our trash hauler. I am perfectly fine giving them an opportunity to fix things that are correctable. But the fact that the staff would think that was acceptable, and the fact that a supervisor would tell them to do that is not acceptable. And they need to understand that we as a city will never accept that as being an acceptable response. So that's my take on it. I'd like to see our street fixed. I really truly think that they hold a part of making that mistake. I think our contractors and engineering firm are also slightly responsible for that. And I'd really like to see our trash getting picked up sooner and in a professional manner. Definitely mixing recyclables and trash together is not what we're paying them to do.
Councilmember Gunso, back to you.
Thank you. Just to, I guess, circle back to some of the comments that have been made. And I know in years past when we've had the RSOC chairman here, Wixom has always been one of the higher recycling communities in the entire group, and that's been something nice. And then to find stuff that all that effort that residents take to recycle is just ending up in the trash pile down in Northville Township is asinine. But as was mentioned with the janitorial services contract, we want to set the standards early. And so that's why, to me, we need to be especially harsh with this. I'm not saying that we need to change right away, but we need to put them on notice that there has not been significant or fast enough improvement. And as a matter of fact, things just seem to have been getting dumber and dumber as we've gone along, like putting recycling in with trash, and that the city is not going to tolerate it moving forward. I mean, I feel like we literally got lied to when we sat here with them talking to us, and they talked about how they had all of the staff throughout the winter and on staff now, and now it sounds like they had to go hire people. And they had all the equipment like the trucks, now they're having to rent trucks. We were all gonna get recycling bins, then we all got stickers instead, and that there would be a smooth transition because they learned their lesson in Novi. We've had anything but. So it seems like every single thing that they said was not the truth. And that, to me personally, is a deal breaker for most things. So that is why I think we need to put them on notice immediately and set the ground rules and the consequences. So, thank you.
Real quick, the recycling thing, I think people are aware that we're involved with that. That was addressed immediately without any interaction from the city, pretty aggressively by GFL. That's all I'll say, because it's not something I should make a comment on directly. But that was not taken lightly by GFL either. So that was before the next day action was taken by GFL. The other thing that I'll say, going back to something that was said at the beginning in terms of cost savings and whatnot, I don't know, Tim, if you have a recollection of what the new costs were to be under Waste Management's bid, actually, but it was not a $15 differential. That's the difference.
That was between Old Republic.
That was what the old cost under Waste Management was and what the new cost was under GFL. The new cost under Waste Management would have been substantially beyond $15 higher. So GFL, if you were talking that compared to Old Republic, if the difference was $15,
it was right around there.
I'd have to go back and check. I just wanted to clarify, it wasn't, that's not what the cost was going to be with Waste Management under their bid.
It's close to $1 million over the 5-year contract.
Yeah, but it's not like it's each individual resident's money. It's not city money necessarily, even though we collect it through taxes. But it's a service that it's probably, honestly, the service that residents use most, aside from water and sewer, throughout the year. Is 52 weeks a year trash is getting picked up, and they're not using, hopefully, police and fire that frequently or anything like that. But if that's the third most important thing besides water and sewer that they are using from the city, and it's become a difficulty for residents, I don't want that difficulty to continue on for them.
Yeah, that's something we talk about with local government, is the stuff you rely on most every day in terms of services. That's what we do. And certainly garbage is right up there as being an important service that people count on. So I do feel very confident GFL knows the city does not find the transition experience satisfactory, and they need to up their game on that front. And I do believe, this was mentioned at a couple different points, that things have improved in some circumstances, but likewise at that HOA meeting I made a comment directly that while they've improved, they're still not acceptable and we need to fix it, meaning the company needs to fix it. So I think the expectations are clearly set there, but we can certainly do some additional interactions with their management staff and get that across more forcefully still, but they're well aware of our dissatisfaction on this. So.
Councilmember Behrman?
I guess my only other question is, are we stuck on Wednesday? Would there be a better day during the week that they would have better labor availability to service us better?
We have looked into that a little bit. I'm not quite sure that our residents are really receptive to that yet, but it may be large enough now that we would go to a 2-day service, and that would is another thought that we're thinking about. Over the last couple weeks anyway, with the power outage that we had, the garbage or the refuse that went out to the curb was twice as much as normal, just because of all of the freezers and the refrigerators all went out to, well, the contents of those went out to the street. And there were issues there too, just coming back and forth to their landfills. But and then also the compost facility as well. We saw a very large influx of compost that came out to the curb that same week. That's all occurred in the last 3 weeks. With that, it's last week it was a little more yet, and now we expect that it'll be back to a normal cycle. So yes, the trash pickup from their perspective as well has been different the last 3 weeks, but that's another complicated piece of this pie that we're trying to deal with.
Thanks.
All right. Anybody else? All right, so Tim, you've got direction on what council expects, and then come back to us in a couple of weeks with the email report. Hopefully that's gone down, and we're taking some bigger steps to improve the service to our residents. Thanks. And with that, that closes the new business portion of our meeting. We move on to the second call to the public. Again, I'll read the rules to call to the public. They are as follows. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do I have anybody for the second call to the public? Madam.
Good evening. Again, Bill Day, 2950 Loon Drive. First of all, I want to congratulate Carlisle Warman on their successful bid. I really appreciated Councilmember Sharp's point about having different stakeholders and maybe not everybody seeing the same issues or the same problems. And, I'm hoping that in 6 months I'll say, gosh, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so we'll move forward, and I think we have... even though the planning commission may have wanted a different result, we have professional, mature people on the commission, and I think we'll be able to work well with Carlisle Warman. I also wanted to address the GFL issue. I must live in the low-rent district because the other day after the recycling bin went by, I saw my neighbor going to put his recycling bin away and picking up a dozen pieces of trash off the street. I saw trucks blocking the streets. The trucks they're using, I think they must have sold the city a bill of goods because they seem to be using antiquated equipment compared to what we were getting from Waste Management. The service is just not, in my estimation, not nearly as good or professional as we got from Waste Management. I hope that changes, but I haven't seen it yet. But the real reason I stuck around tonight for the second call to the public is something that I read in the council minutes from, 1 or 2 meetings ago, where just prior to the meeting, Commissioner Gottschall asked to add to the agenda a discussion item regarding regional transit and the fact that the county commission was considering putting regional transit on the ballot without an opt-out for communities. And this was put on the ballot, and some numbers were given as to what this would cost in the way of taxes per household. Without any, and those numbers may well have been correct, I don't know, but there was no documentation of those numbers or where they came from. And it seemed to me that there was, with the exception of Councilmember Sharp, who thought that any decision or vote should be deferred pending further investigation, there seemed to be kind of a knee-jerk reaction of, this is more taxes, therefore it's a bad thing, we're against it. I know Councilmember Smiley has in his campaign literature vowed to oppose this plan, and it's good he's taken a position that people can look at and vote on. But personally, and also tonight, there was talk about, what's the public think? We have to get public input on these things. And instead, the council just went ahead and decided to draft a letter to the county commission against this proposal. I personally am in favor of the proposal. I'm in favor. I know that probably none of you would ever use this regional transit. I probably would never use it. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of people in different demographics in this city who would use it. And I think we're doing a disservice by ignoring them. And I personally am happy. Paying taxes is part of the price of living in a civilized society where we jointly have things like roads, like a city council chambers, garbage pickup. I mean, we pay taxes for these things. I think paying taxes for a regional transit system which can reduce carbon emissions and which can serve lower income people who don't have the same access to personal transportation that all of us have is something that we should actually look favorably upon, rather than just take a knee-jerk reaction without any consultation with the community as to what they might want, and decide as members of the council that this is something the city is against. It just seemed to me to be really premature to do that without further discussion and further input. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you listening.
Thank you. Anybody else for the second call to the public? Seeing none, I'll close the second call to the public and move on to city manager's comments. City Manager Brown?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple things in the city manager update that I'll touch on quickly. Some of it's a little timely with the discussion that was just brought on the agenda. The clerk's office attended a free education class that was held for all Michigan clerks in Mount Pleasant recently. With the upcoming election on November 8th, they've been busily getting ready for that election. There's information about the absentee ballots being scheduled to be mailed the first week in October. And then also some information for people that might be interested, if they're interested in seeing us for a passport application. We are suspending passport application acceptance from September 19th through November 14th because of the added demands on the clerk's office for the upcoming election. Something was mentioned in the GFL discussion there a second ago about the recycling carts, and that gives me a good chance to kind of flesh out what I have here. But we had the recycling carts in the last week were going to be rebranded by GFL. And if you didn't get that accomplished at your curb because of whatever circumstances that you were asked to leave your cart at the curb after pickup to allow time for them to apply the branding stickers. If you didn't get that accomplished, you can contact the city manager's office or the Department of Public Works, 248-624-0894 for the city manager's office, and I believe it's 624-0141 for the DPW. So that's information that was provided in the city manager update in relation to the recycling carts, and that being something that GFL didn't follow through on. The decision to utilize the existing carts as opposed to switching them out was at the city's request. It was not at GFL's request. One of the main sticking points in prior transitions was complications with changing out recycling carts. So singing a happy tune with the issues that we have had on the transition, I'm glad that we didn't have the issue with the recycling carts full swap out being added to it potentially. So the decision was made to transfer those carts from Waste Management and transfer them to GFL with a rebranding done. Again, that was at our request to minimize the possible issues that would come about in relation to that from the transition. So that was why that was done. It was not a decision by GFL or anything where they failed to follow through on what was discussed at their proposal discussion. And that's the only two things that I had. There's a bunch of things in the dates to remember as usual. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to try to answer them tonight or get back to you if we need to.
Assistant City Manager Benson, do you have anything?
I do, thank you, Mayor. I will be brief. I have just a couple things. One, I wanted to give a shout out to the Wixom Library, the Wixom Parks and Recreation Commission, and the Wixom DDA for coming together for a joint meeting last night as they worked together and collaboratively on some park enhancements for the tot lot behind the library. There are lots of different opinions and lots of things to bring together, but it was great to see everyone come prepared and to have that discussion in moving that forward in a generally positive way. Second thing, I wanted to also give a shout out to the DDA related to the block party over the weekend. While it did rain and that came down on the parade a little bit, it was encouraging to see so many different events coming together downtown, as well as having people come out and take advantage of kind of the revised setup. Also, the Lakes Area Chamber, I wanted to shout them out publicly. They've continued to be a great partner for the city. We were able to collaborate on some business retention visits last week, and they're also, with the State of the Lakes event coming up next week, wanted to put that on your all's calendar again to register if you have not. Looking forward to having everyone there. And the final thing I wanted to say is in regards to the planning discussion that we had tonight, there were a lot of opinions and there were a lot of things that went into that decision, but I wanted to take a moment to thank CIB Planning for the services that they provided to the city. This was not an easy decision to recommend. It was not an easy decision necessarily to approve, and it will, be a tough decision for planning commissioners, and we recognize that. So while we are very excited about the prospects of Carlisle Workman and Associates, it would be unfair to not congratulate them and thank them for what they've provided to the city over all these years.
Thank you. Council comments. Councilmember Gatchell.
Thank you. Just like to speak to Mr. Day's comments. I think there was maybe a misunderstanding in where things were coming from. It wasn't in the sense that I'm personally against the plan. I wish we had trains so we could go to Ann Arbor or downtown Detroit much more easily, something that is possible in like the Chicago area with Metra. I don't think buses necessarily capture that, but where that letter was coming from was the exclusion in the current plan of the opt-out clause. And so you're letting residents that might use the service more in a different part of the county force taxpayers in other parts of the county to pay for that, even though residents here might not use it. And so that, to me, is more of a local government and small government issue. I know we might disagree as to that, and you might favor the plan and want to pay for it, but to me, it would be the same as us saying everybody in Wixom loves pickleball, so let's have pickleball in every community, and people in another city might not use it. It's just a local government. Our city government knows what our residents want better than the county government does. We haven't had anyone from the county government come here and ask or even come introduce themselves. So it's just one of those things where you're forcing people to use something or pay for something they might not use. And that's, to me, more of the issue. Transit or any other thing is kind of inappropriate in my book. The other question, or a question I had, was when we've had a few meetings since the Charter Amendment Committee has put out their memo to everyone, when are we going to start discussing those, or has a plan put together to start adding those to the agenda?
There's no timing afoot in administration on that front, so it would be a matter of discussing with council members if you want to bring things forward, those kind of things.
My guess would maybe be, seeing how we have council members being absent at the next two council meetings, that would probably be like the second council meeting in October when we have a full council.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to start peppering those in when we can. That way we can work our way through the ones that weren't in discussion. And then my final comment tonight was regarding the memo, the Hawk Signal memo that went out, and the difficulty or misunderstanding of not being able to sync those properly or as we had anticipated. And so my only thought with that, because I think if we went ahead with the Hawk Signal, it's going to create traffic issues because it won't be synced, and then we're going to have two lights 100 yards apart, which isn't on a 25-mile-an-hour road that already has traffic. It's not going to be great. is there anything that would prevent us, instead of using a hog signal, just put a regular intersection light there so people would stop? In my mind, since it's a hog signal, they're saying, the county's saying it won't communicate. If we put an actual intersection light there, theoretically, we should be able to sync them, and then we tell people, you're only allowed to cross Wixom Road when the signal is red and traffic is stopped. To me, that might be the workaround for the syncing issue. I think it's going to become a little bit of chaos over there with people pushing the button, stopping traffic when the main intersection has green. So that was my only thought that popped into my head. I wasn't sure if we had considered that.
I can't imagine RCOC responding positively to that, but we can take a look at it and whether that's possible. When you mentioned the synchronization thing, potentially that would be less of an issue from the road commission perspective, but we can inquire about it. The thing that I will say on the Hawk issue of not synchronization but coordinating, as the terminology came out to be, the thing that we're evaluating is whether we can add intervals. We know we can add intervals to how often a hawk can be activated, which would help to minimize the impact. But what we're inquiring about right now with the Road Commission and the vendor and our people on the Trailway Council is whether we can have that those intervals changed at different points during the day. For example, in rush hour time periods, can we make the interval even longer to minimize the chance of an interaction with a green light but a red light on the Hawk? So that's something that we're looking at actively right now to try to see where we're at, and then we can make a decision from there depending on what that answer is. We don't have that yet. So if you follow me, if we can, if we say that it doesn't happen any more than every minute as a regular interval, if we can say no more often than every 2 minutes in rush hour time period, so that it would minimize the impact on red lights and green lights with the Pontiac Trail and Wixom intersection, that's what we're looking into. We don't have that answer yet unless I'm out of date. So Tim's giving me the nod that we do not have that answer still. So that's where we're looking at next. And once we get that answer, I think we can start to see if we feel this isn't going to be workable, what else can we look at? And we can talk about it with the Road Commission on your idea. I'm just a little skeptical about what their reaction is going to be, frankly.
Yeah, I don't know that maybe they've even thought about it, but I think there's probably a time limit on people's willingness to sit on their bike or waiting for that. And so if we change it to 5 minutes because it's rush hour, they're going to cross the road at some point on their own, and then it becomes a safety issue. I think if we were allowed to put another intersection light there, I don't know how quickly that cycles through at the intersection, but if it's synced, to me, that would be probably a safer option.
Understand.
Thank you.
Councilmember Smiley.
All I was going to say tonight was that, the block party was nice and it finally didn't rain. But you're saying it rained?
There was a period of rain in there.
What time did it rain?
I want to say that was, what?
3 o'clock maybe?
Peter, I saw you there at the same time.
It was close to 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
It was around 3 o'clock.
Well, I missed it. I'm glad, but I thought, finally we had some nice day.
It wasn't horrible.
sunshine.
Well, I know we've had, it feels like it rains the whole time, every time, so this time it just rained for a little bit and we're making progress. That's all I had. That was a nice event, and I'm glad we do it. Thank you.
Councilmember Behrman.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to the Planning Commission members that did come out this evening. I know we didn't go the way that you hoped that we were going to go, but then to also then come back up and show your acceptance and your willingness to move forward really shows a lot about your character. I appreciate that very much. And I really do hope that the transition is smooth and works extremely well for you and for our community. I also wanted to talk about the memo on the Hawk. I was really disappointed when I read that because we specifically asked the question on whether or not that crossing could be timed to Wixom and Pontiac Trail before we even started the process of approving all of this. And the fact that the trail is now built and we're just now being told, sorry, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable by any stretch that when traffic is backed up to the fire station, now it's going to be backed up all the way to the end of the city because people are just stopping the traffic when it's open for it to flow out of the city. That somehow the crossing needs to be timed to when Wixom Road is red, or Wixom and Pontiac Trail is red. That just has to happen. And maybe putting a traffic light there that's timed to Wixom and Pontiac Trail is the solution. But if they can't find a solution for the Hawk to talk to Wixom and Pontiac Trail, the Hawk is not the solution. And I think we're just going to be looking at a worse of a traffic problem and potentially, again, somebody getting hit by a car and killed. So I hope that it's being taken seriously. I don't feel from reading this memo that the Trail Council is taking it seriously, because we were extremely clear to them when they were here that this needed to be addressed, and I felt like they were very clear back that it would be addressed, and now finding out that it isn't is really disappointing. Lastly, the block party. My family had a good time. I was disappointed that the street wasn't closed between Old Wixom and New Wixom. I really felt like the vendors that were put back in the municipal parking lot were kind of forgotten about. The insurance agency back there said that last year they gave out like 600 boxes of popcorn, and this year they only were able to give out 200. So that really shows that how their foot traffic was down by them being put back in the parking lot. That being said, I did enter to win a TV, and I won a TV. So I guess there's a plus for them not being busy.
Rigged.
Possibly, no. But that's all I have.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Part of the interruption. I just wanted to thank Mr. Lewan and Mr. Carlisle for coming out tonight, and look forward to working with Doug and having you wow us with your enthusiasm and great ideas that are coming. And I know Planning Commission is looking forward to that as well. So welcome to Wixom. That's all I have. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you, Mayor. Also want to thank Chairman Day and Commissioner Tacey for coming out today. That's, fully respect your position on it, and like I said, it was a complex thing that we had to do. Mr. Luan and Mr. Carlisle, welcome to Wixom. We do hope to build a long relationship as we had with the LSL and CIB over that 21 years. And again, I really appreciated working with Carmen and team over those 21 years with a lot of different projects. From the time I was on Parks and Rec all the way through today, all these years on council. So it is what it is, and we'll build a new relationship. Also wanted to shout out to the DPW. Did a great job during the last storm, day and night, and a lot of residents were very, very appreciative of the care and diligency and the attention that was given immediately, like not the next day, but during the nighttime hours as well. All you heard were the tractors and the trucks rolling every which way, clearing debris and limbs, and that was very much appreciated by the residents. So that's all I have.
I too want to echo Deputy Mayor's comments, and I want to thank the fire department and the DPW for their efforts during the storm, keeping our residents safe and clearing the roads and making sure that we can get going and clearing up the stuff so we can get Edison in to make sure that the power was restored for all of us. Appreciate all your work. I want to thank Carmen and his staff for everything they've done for the city. It was a great run, but it was, like Tom says, it was a complex deal, and unfortunately, Carmen his contract was not renewed. We welcome Carlisle Workman to the city. Welcome. And thank you to Commissioner Day and Councilmember Tacey for their comments tonight, for coming here. It's much appreciated, and I appreciate the fact that you guys said that, it wasn't the way you want it to be, but yet you're willing to work, and that's why we have such great planning department and planning committee. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.